Hey everyone and welcome back. This should be a fun trip that starts out at the CSX Queensgate Yard just west of downtown Cincinnati. We're at the northernmost section of the yard looking west. I hadn't railfanned CSX in a while and I'd figured I'd see what was out there. Well, unfortunately there wasn't much. I heard several trains heading northbound out of the yard, but nothing southbound into Kentucky where I wanted to railfan. And nearby in Norfolk Southern's Guest Street Yard, it seemed it was receiving or sending a train every 10 minutes. Ugh. Well, I've already shot video of the Queensgate Yard, but that was from the west side. Now we're on the east side, so let's take a look around. There's still plenty of action to see as we listen in on the radio traffic in the area. Looking south, we really get an idea of just how big this yard is and how busy too. Look at all those tracks full of cars. The bowl has 50 tracks for operators to sort cars off the hump. Speaking of, we lucked out and get to see it in action. I find it fascinating to watch the cars make their way into the different bowl tracks.
8554, back in the train, DP, I think it was. No, they told us all head in power today. It's all on the handing office. Oh, okay. Not compatible there. DP wise. I have no idea. They come out of the house like this and they said head in power. 11/27. Okay.
In this shot, we can see Norfolk Southern's outbound tracks as they head north on the very left of the yard. In this shot, we see the north end of the bowl tracks and what looks to be a train either doubling or tripling out. Now I'll follow along as you can see a Norfolk Southern train making its way into the yard. In this shot, we see the Norfolk Southern train approaching the Guest Street Yard. It's getting ready to go under the Western Hills Viaduct. In the distance, we can see the engine shops and all the engines lined up. We can also see the brain center of the operation, the CSX tower right there next to the hump.
CSX dispatch export. Yeah, Z12501, over. Yeah, come on there. Z125, I guess down to third.
Here's another look at the 50 tracks that make up the bowl as we look northward.
Correction, second main, number 2. Yeah, they kind of told us they wanted us to make it. I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. I'll run you down number 2.
Now we're looking southbound again over the Western Hills Viaduct. You can see the CSX intermodal facility directly in front of us, and then beyond that is Norfolk Southern's Guest Street Yard. In this shot, we see the cars being pushed over the hump to be sorted. In the upper right corner of your screen, you can see the worker who's separating the cars by hand. I always thought this had become an automated job. And we follow along as the cars get sorted and sent into their separate tracks in the bowl.
20228 with 2 engines, 26332 and a 26339. Well, that's 3025 second one. Engineer Morley, conductor Acres on duty, 1015 carrying CSX dispatch of Walton 80253. We're 11 by 0. We are 764 on the tires, 1181 on the feet.
This shot shows just how busy this yard can be at times. You can see several trains moving in the foreground, plus those cars being sorted at the hump. In this shot, we can see a Norfolk Southern train heading south to cross the old Southern Railroad Bridge. We can see the DPU in the middle. This looks to be a steel train. There we have the opposite angle looking north. You can see a little bit of Union Terminal in the shot on the right, and then all those containers from the Norfolk Southern Intermodal Facility. Now we're looking directly at Union Terminal. Those openings at the lower left and lower right corner of your screen were actually designed to handle buses when this was a transportation terminal.
Cincinnati Dispatch 56G, over.
Just coming into view on your right is Tower A, the former control center of the yard. And we get another look south as that Norfolk Southern train keeps creeping up onto the Southern Railroad Bridge. Now I'll do a quick pan of the Guest Street Yard.
Dispatcher 56G, over. Yeah. I'm going to take you out of the siding and get you down to 78th Street. There is no road cab. They didn't fill it.
After leaving, I was driving around checking signals on the CSX line into the yard when I spotted this train making its way north. I only had time to turn on my drone and start recording from the old Baltimore and Ohio warehouse parking lot. We can see the way the tracks snake their way into the yard. We can see the split as the train makes its way to the right. I did a little searching to try and find the original layout, but there's a large gap in the images from around the turn of the century to after I-75 came through. If anyone knows anywhere to see the previous layouts, I'd love to check them out. After the train was gone, I did another round of signal checks. I went over to Covington and back. I was about to give up when I saw what I believe is an approach medium, which means proceed approaching the next signal at no faster than medium speed. I went a little closer to the river this time and got set up. Short time later, we had some action. We'll follow it as it makes its way under the C&O Railroad Bridge. Let's back up for a second though and see it from the drone's point of view. We'll follow along as it creeps across the Ohio River into Covington. While it is structurally sound, the bridge sure could use a coat of paint. Just downriver, the Brent Spence Bridge, which carries I-71 and I-75, is getting a fresh coat. Maybe CSX will take note and do the same, but I doubt it. A few minutes later and the train is finished going by. Figured this was the last time I would see this train, but boy was I wrong. I decided to head to Latonia and do another signal check.
Point 3, track 1. 574, coming to the yard, they're all headed power, about 6,000.
I'll tell you what, come on in, I guess line west up to south, hit your counter south and fall 50.
When I got to the 33rd Street crossing, I was too late and a northbound train was already there going by. I decided to record it anyway. After all, I hadn't been having much luck today. Turns out, my luck was about to change. As the train clears the crossing, we'll zoom in and follow it. You can barely see it, but that looks like an engine to me in the distance. Sure enough, we can actually see the crew members climb aboard. A couple moments later, and we see the switch line for a diverging move, and then the signal improves to a slow clear. Then, the engine fires up and begins to make its way south. I couldn't see because I didn't want to get too close to the tracks, but I hoped that slow clear meant it would be doing two diverging moves and heading toward Louisville on the LCL Sub. Lucky for me, I was right. It is headed toward Louisville. Let's take another look as the train goes over the two switches. We'll follow it for a bit. Latonia is a no-horn zone, so it's relatively quiet as the train makes its way through town. If we look in the distance, we can see the Railway Museum of Greater Cincinnati. It's got several great pieces that are worth checking out, but right now it still says it's closed due to COVID-19. Make sure to check the group's Facebook page to see when it opens, and I'll try to update this when it opens as well. Back to the train. We can see the Y as we head back east. On the other side, you can see the L&N Wilder Main as it crosses the Licking River. We keep going and now see the sachet move from the other side. I debated where I should go next. There are a few spots I've been to in Independence and Walton, and I wanted to go somewhere new. So we head south to a bridge I've driven or ridden under hundreds of times. It's the CSX Salem Creek Road Bridge, which also goes over I-75. It was built in 1940, well before the interstate came through here. It's 630 feet long. I didn't know how much time I had to get set up, so I just went with 2 cameras and then sent my drone. It wasn't long before a train came, but it wasn't the one I was expecting. We can see it's a work train that looks to have new ribbon rail for a replacement project somewhere. Let's get a closer look from the drone's perspective. Had it not been for the engineer blowing the horn, I would have definitely been looking the wrong direction waiting for our other train. This was the first time I've been to this spot. I will say, it was a lot cooler in my mind. There wasn't anywhere to pull off that wouldn't hurt someone's yard, and the view isn't that great because of the fencing along the girders. Hopefully, that southbound was waiting for this train to go by and I haven't already missed it. Well, on to our next stop to find out. I like taking the back roads on the LCL Subdivision. I typically get off at the Glencoe exit on I-71 and then go to the center of town. I didn't get any video or pictures from it, but I did try to go to where Eagle Tunnel was. It's been daylighted and I've seen several pictures from the area. It looks pretty cool. However, I couldn't find anywhere to safely park or get a great shot because the tree line has grown so much, so I just kept going and went on to Glencoe. There are signals there in both directions, but you can only see the southbound ones at South End Glencoe. Sure enough, we have a clear signal. Looks like we're still ahead. There is a nice wide open field to set up in just east of here. It has signals at the North End Glencoe switch, but it's not that scenic of a shot, so I just kept driving. I've made this trip several times. I'm heading to Worthville. It's a few minutes longer than the interstate, but I like staying on State Route 467. It pretty much runs parallel to the tracks for the entire way. While driving, I spotted this unique mile marker. I've never seen one with an orange painted cap like this. Did someone just get a little creative, or is there an actual reason behind this? Just curious. Well, on to Worthville. As we continue, I notice many of the signals are not lit. I get automatic block signals not being illuminated all the time, but always wondered about control point signals. I can't imagine it costs much to keep them lit, but it seems to be pretty common, especially on the LCL and CC subs. A few minutes later, and we're at Worthville. Good news, a clear signal awaiting us. I like this spot because it's nice and open, plus there's a cantilever signal bridge. CSX has an office here that seems to be pretty busy with work crews. Once I get set up, it's just a few more minutes before I hear a horn blow in the distance. Moments later, I see a headlight come into view. We see it knock down the signal as it speeds through the area. Now we'll get a bird's eye view with the drone. If you look closely, the far right track leads to the Carrollton and Worthville Railroad. It runs for about 15 miles north and east from here. I don't know if it's still or ever was true for that matter, but the 15 miles of track as part of the Carrollton and Worthville Railroad operates is claimed to produce more revenue per mile than any other track owned by CSX. Worthville lies at the bottom of the Kentucky River. As they climb out of the valley, eastbound trains face a 1.7% grade, while westbound trains deal with a 1.46% grade. The Louisville, Cincinnati, and Lexington Railroad, LCL, established at Worthville a locomotive service facility. It had a water tank and coal and sand towers. During the steam locomotive era, helper locomotives were based at Worthville to assist heavy freight trains in the climb out of the Kentucky River Valley. As our train is finishing up, we see it crossing the Kentucky River Bridge. The bridge is more than 700 feet long. Lastly, we head to Grange to hopefully see some street running. Here's a car's eye view of the tracks as they go through downtown. CSX did a tire replacement project about a year ago. You can see how nice the pavement is. If you have a few minutes, it's always nice to stop in the LaGrange Railroad Museum. There you'll find a steam engine, 1929 dining car, Ellen and caboose, and a train yard jitney. The steam engine was built in England and was originally used to move coal for a power plant before being replaced by modern diesel engines. As I was heading south on I-71, I saw that I passed our train as it snaked its way through the hills, so I was surprised to find an all-red aspect at the signal. Luckily, it wasn't long before it improved to a clear aspect. It wasn't much of a wait before I saw a headlight peek from behind the trees in the distance. We'll speed it up as it makes its way toward us. I didn't realize it at the time, but this is the train I'd been following all day. I'm sure the crew was wondering why they had some Railfan following them almost to Louisville. They didn't seem to mind though. The engineer gave me a wave before blowing the horn. Let's follow for a bit as the train splits the town in half. You can see the street running section is only a few blocks long. The county's website says as many as 30 trains come through each day, but I'm sure that's been cut pretty substantially since COVID and as precision scheduled railroading continues to trim and cut. Grange really has embraced the railroad and rail fans despite the fact that they cut it in half whenever they come through. The town even built a train viewing platform. You can see the northbound signal from it, and you have a clear view of the street running section to the south. The speed limit is 10 miles an hour as the engine makes its way through downtown. Once it clears the street running section, though, they're allowed to increase the speed to 25 miles an hour. So as we see the end of the train in sight, that's why it's going a little faster than when it first came through.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector. Milepost 21.1. No defects. No defects. Total axle 320. Train lane 479er 3. End of transmission.
I didn't know what to expect this trip, and it certainly didn't start out promising. But chasing this train was fun, and I got to check out some of my favorite spots along the LCL Subdivision. Hope you enjoyed the trip, and I'd like to give a huge thank you to those of you who have subscribed. I really do appreciate it, and thank you to those who comment on the videos as well. I really enjoy reading them and responding to them. So again, thank you all very, very much. Till our next trip together, have a great day.